Maybe. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Real Talk Fins Talk. I'm your host, Steve Malloy, and my two guests to my over there is the one and only
Greg Meyne
from Ace Per Head, and Greg Meyne from Fins Talk Sports Network.
It's Meyne. I've been calling you Meyne. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Steve.
Is it Meyne? I don't know.
It's actually
what
Meyne.
Miney. There you go. We were both wrong.
Miney. That's all right.
Now I know. Correction. Now I know.
Bobby keeps screwing it up too, so don't worry about it.
Well, maybe see that's why I'm screwing it up, because I hear him saying, "No, I'm only kidding." But we got two great guests on tonight. I'm happy for you two guys to come on. I invited you on tonight. Well, this is not the only reason, but one of the reasons was I was really enjoying the discussion or debate, whatever you want to call it, that you two were having on what is now known as X, formerly Twitter. And it was a great discussion. I was just sitting back, as I told you backstage. I was sitting back with my popcorn, and I was just reading all the different, responses you were getting, not only from other, fans, other people that were on the thread, but also between you two guys. And I was learning a lot. I really was. I really enjoyed it. And I said, man, I got to have these guys on to continue with this discussion, because it was a very good civil discussion. And so that's what we're going to do. But before we get started, I want to make sure everybody that's coming in, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that bell down there, subscribe, share with your friends, your families, your neighbor, anybody. Share with with the Buffalo Bills fan, with a New England fan. I don't care. Just come over here and join the community and the discussion, especially because this applies to not just the Miami Dolphins, but as any NFL team, right? So that's what we're going to do. Also, I wanted to make mention of the schedule for training camp up and coming here. And let's see, it starts in July, actually. July 26th is the first day of training camp for the Miami Dolphins, official day of training camp. Then they have training camp the 28th, the 29th, and the 30th of July. So if you're watching this right now or listening, take your pad and paper and pen and write those dates down. If not, you can always go to the MiamiDolphins.com website, and they'll have all that information for you. Then the next set of training camp dates are August 1st, 2nd, all the way to August 21st. So from August 2nd to August 21st. Now they're not on the days are April the 2nd, August the 1st, August the 2nd, August the 3rd, August the 6th. Then there's a break in between, and then August 19, 20, and 21. So those are your training camp dates. I'm looking forward to those dates. And I don't have the schedule for the actual joint practices, but I believe the Dolphins are going to have 3 joint practices. Do any of you know the joint practices? Well, one of them is with, I believe, Jacksonville, I think. And you know what? I don't want to tell you all wrong and lead you all astray here. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I thought one was with Jacksonville, but if anybody wants to go ahead and look that up while we're continue with the show, we can do that.
So Steve, let me just comment on
Mhm.
training camp for this. All right.
Sure.
If you have a chance and you're a football fan and you're a fan of the Dolphins, go to training camp practices. It's free. You don't have to pay anything for the tickets. No fees for the parking or anything like that. It's great football. I love training camp practices. Okay. But I will say this. The best days to go are the days before a day off. Those are usually the most intense, scrimmage practices because they have the next day off. So if you're gonna make some time and you want to go to practice, find those days. And also the joint practices are fun as well. So
Good info.
I've been
Yeah,
I live in
absolutely.
Florida. I go down for 2 or 3, a long weekend or something like that every year.
Sweet. Lucky you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah. I actually went to the joint practices here. This was a couple years back, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when they had the joint practice with Houston.
Yep.
And I went to one of those practices, and like you said, Greg, they are free. I got my ticket in advance online, and they scan your phone and everything. You don't have to download a ticket or anything. You just scan it right off your phone. And when you go into the facilities to watch them practice, and yeah, man, it was great. I mean, I was like, I got to shake hands with Tua, A-Chan, Duke Riley when he was here. Several of the players I got to meet up close and in personal, and it was just a great, as you said, good football, and you got to see how the coaches are acting and what the players, how they're responding, and it's kind of hard for me. It was kind of hard because I don't know how it is in down there at the Baptist health facility, but where the Dolphins practice down in South Florida there. But I know here in Houston, they had the defenses on the far field, and then they had the offense, on the end that I was at, where I was sitting, and so we got to see a lot of the offense. But eventually, both the teams came and they practiced on that one field. But yeah, it was great, man. It was a good experience if you've never been to one. It really is, So thanks for bringing that up, Greg. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
So let's get on with the show. Let's talk about what the title is today, right? The trenches.
Oh,
And
really? I hate that. I want to talk kickers, hunters.
There you go. There you go.
More excitement.
But so in my opinion, guys, I think you two are probably the best when it comes to talking about the trenches. And that's another reason why I had you on. Curtis, you've been doing this for, several years, a lot of evaluating the trenches. And also you've got a lot of data points and things like that to back up your evaluations and observations and things of that nature. And then we know that our guy from Finns Talk Sports Network, Greg Meyne. Is it Meyne? Meyne, Greg Meyne over here. Now that I got it right after a couple years, I finally got it right. Greg Meyne. He is a former offensive lineman, played offensive line in college. Is that correct, Greg?
That is correct. At a small Division III school, but yes.
There you go. And you were also a coach. Is that correct?
I also coached it, yes.
Yeah, so he was a coach as well. So these guys, they're coming from experience, and I know Curtis was a running back in a D2
school.
D2 school. He played running back
for a minute. It was only for a minute. I was too busy.
Well, you still have the experience that a lot of like 2 or 3% of the only get to experience. So I never experienced college. I did play high school. Whoopee-doo, right? But I did play high school, and I played running back, and I enjoyed it. Not only did I play running back, and I'm not kind of I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I was a kick returner, punt returner, punter, defensive back, and running back.
And you missed a very important point. You were a soldier, and there's a lot of correlative aspects between being a soldier and a football player. I mean, obviously some differences, but there's some core philosophies, core concepts that really intertwine. And so I think that is a valuable asset as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Curtis. I appreciate that. You're right. There is a lot that correlates with the with being football and all the violence and all that it comes with it. So we're going to start with the question is, and I'll start with you first, Curtis. Number one, what is your philosophy in the O-line play or the trenches for, it doesn't have to be the Dolphins right now. Let's just say in the NFL, period. And this question is I'm going to ask this question also to Greg. So stand by, Greg. I need your take and how you feel on this as well. So Curtis, what is your philosophy on the trenches for NFL football teams?
My basic philosophy is that the offensive line makes the NFL world go round. And I remember running behind the second team and the third team, and then I got a little light with the first team. And it's not that they are, they dictate everything, but they set the difficulty level. And the difficulty level, however it's set, it creates more consistency. And when the offensive line sets a consistent lower difficulty level, it allows the skills to not have to operate at such a high level consistently. And then when they succeed, then it fuels the defense to rest. And so over the course of a drive or a quarter or a game, a season, all that stuff extrapolates out to be a benefit. I don't think you need top 5 or top 10. I think you need around 15th, but they have to have a diverse skill set, and you certainly need depth. But they set the difficulty level. And when the difficulty level is operating at an average level, really it's the best way to test the skills and evaluate them. That, when they're really poor, it gets more difficult to evaluate the skills. And when it's too good, it gets difficult to evaluate the skills. So it's just Madden, all pro, all Madden is really set by the offensive line and obviously how the competition they're facing. So that's my general take.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily disagree with anything Curtis says. Okay. But I look at it from a point of view as in the past, you could make the argument that the offensive line dictated how the offense was ran. Okay. I go back to the Emmitt Smith Dallas Cowboy days. Okay. They had a big bruising offensive line. They were a power football team. Emmitt Smith was a power running back, so on and so forth. Right. But that was 25 years ago. I'm saying in today's football, you couldn't build that type of offensive line, all right? Because the game on the defensive side has gotten faster and it's gotten smaller, okay? And to compensate for that, the offensive line has had to be more diverse. They got to be better athletes. They got to handle smaller, quicker athletes, okay? The majority of defense ran today in the NFL is basically 5 DBs. They took a big off and they brought in a small, okay? And even the defensive line has less small on or less big on it than it did in the past, all right? You also have more diverse fronts. Now, the thing about the offensive line play now is everything happens on a quick basis and everything is basically inside, outside zone. So the quality of offensive linemen to run these offenses that the league is basically dictating now isn't the same as what it was in the past. And you can see that because I look at it at a big picture of the league wide. There's 160 starting offensive linemen in the NFL. Okay. There's probably another 80 to 100 that play during the year. So let's just call it a 250 offensive linemen see the field at some point during the year in the NFL. There aren't 250 good offensive linemen. I don't think there's 160 good offensive linemen in the league. I think every team has 2 or 3 below average to poor offensive linemen starting. Okay. So it's hard to build depth. It's hard to find quality starters, especially at all 5 positions. There's just not enough of them. Okay. So what do you have to do to compensate? You need skills. All right. And if you look at the pay structure on offense, the top 2 players are the quarterback and the wide receiver, the quarterback and the pass catcher. All right. They get paid the most because those are the most important pieces on the offense. We've seen bad offensive lines go deep in the playoffs. You don't see bad skill position teams go deep in the playoffs anymore. So I think the emphasis over the last 15, 20 years has been to de-emphasize the offensive line and to put more emphasis on the skills. Now, I agree with Curtis. You can't be god-awful on the offensive line. All right. You can't be bad, but you can hang it in the 20s, in the late teens, early 20s. You can be in that anywhere from 23 on down. You're in a pretty good spot. All right. I just think that because of the movement on offensive line, because of how many draft picks are dedicated to the offensive line and things like of that nature, you can build an offensive line much easier than you can the skill positions groups. And I think early in the drafts, that's where your focus should be. So it kind of pains me to see how many draft picks the Dolphins have selected early on the offensive line, when I don't think it's affected the outcome one way or the other either way. So,
well, I've been doing my notes. I learned yesterday with TD, take notes, and I there's a lot of stuff I agree, and so I'm going to go through past old lines. Yes, the Hogs.
oh, did he freeze?
Yep, he froze up. But I think he was going to say the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, the Washington
at the time, they were called the Redskins. Now they're called the Washington Commanders, and he was talking about their offensive line back in the day called the Hogs. So he did freeze up.
Yeah, but to that point, they're running different offenses back then against different defenses than what today's NFL is about. All right, and we've sacrificed bigs on offense as well. We've taken out a fullback, we've taken out a tight end, we've added a wide receiver. That's mean the defense has gotten smaller. All right, because of the rule changes essentially on defense. All right, you can't hold, you can't be physical with the wide receivers like you used to be, and those types of situations has made it more about the skill positions, and the league has wanted this to drive up scoring, and scoring is way up compared to what it was 20 years ago. All right.
Yeah.
There are reasons that the league is doing what they're doing. Okay. And it's not centered around the offensive line. An average NFL offense or an NFL offense on a game-by-game basis runs around 60 some odd plays a game. Okay, per little more, maybe a little less, something like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
The average passing per game is about 35 pass attempts. Okay, that means you're passing the ball 10 more times than you're running it on a game per game basis. Why is that? Well, game theory suggests that that's the best way to score. All right. So, when you say balanced offense, it used to be 50-50. Now it's 60-40. All right. It's 60-40 in favor of the pass. All right. Completion percentages are way up because, I was just for fun, I looked up to 2008, the last time the Dolphins won their division. All right. Chad Pennington was second in the league in passing rating. Okay. And
Wow. When was that? What year was that? I forgot.
2008.
You just mentioned. Okay, 2008.
2008.
Gotcha.
He was second in the league in passer
Wow.
rating.
I didn't.
And there was only like
Uh-huh.
there's only 5 quarterbacks in the league that had over 100 passer rating.
Right.
Now you're lucky to see,
Right. Wow.
now you probably see 12, 15. Okay.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that was
Yeah.
just 2008. That was less than 20 years ago. So,
Yeah.
you know, it shows you how much the game has changed in a relatively short amount of time to de-emphasize the offensive line as the main function of an offense. All right. It's gone to these skill position players. And again, there's just not enough good offensive linemen to build and keep a consistent offensive line. The Philadelphia Eagles had one of the best offensive lines in the league this year, or this past year.
Yes.
They've already lost a player, but they paid the running back. All right. You know, they made a decision as to, should we keep this guard who went to San Diego and got paid big bucks for a guard, or do we give Saquon Barkley an extension and make him a higher paid player? All right. They made their choice, you know, because, you know, one of my new favorite stats is, you know, yards above expected, right? Rush yards over expected, essentially. All right. It basically takes out all of the noise of the offensive line, and it says the running back on this play should have gained this many yards. And if he doesn't, it's negative. If he gains more than that, it's a positive. All right. You know, Saquon Barkley last year, you know, he had 549 more yards than was expected. Okay.
Wow.
The year before, Swift, the running back for Philadelphia Eagles, had negative 100 yards. So there was about a 500 or 650 yard difference in expected yards, regardless of the O-line. Imagine adding 100 extra, you know, 650 extra yards onto your rushing average, just because of the running back.
Right, but if you go back and you look at the yards per carry that Saquon Barkley had at New York when he was with the Giants, it wasn't very good. Now he got his 1,000 yards, but his yards per carry went down. It was down tremendously.
No, he was playing behind a better offensive line, and they had more threats outside and at quarterback that loosened up the defense. And part of what Curtis and I were talking on X about in our exchange was the effect of being able to run the ball more effectively in Miami. What would it do to the defense? All right. So, you know, in at the end of 23 and into 24, we basically saw a depth problem for the defense, or as it pertains to Miami's offense. They were getting deep. Linebackers were deeper than normal. Defensive backs were playing deeper than normal. And basically that was to contain the passing game and to limit the number of big plays. All right. Miami in 2023 was one of the best big play offenses in the league, and they scored a lot of points. In 2024, they were one of the worst. Okay. And it's due to a lot to do with the defense that was being played. Curtis's argument, and I don't disagree with it, was if we ran the ball better, all right, with a better offensive line and things like that, we would bring those linebackers back up. We would bring the safeties back up into the box to limit that. All right. Theoretically, yes, that's the way it should work. All right. My argument was to him that I'm not sure it changes anything, because the defense still wants to shut down the big play. And the most effective way of doing that is to basically still contain Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. All right. Keep giving the ball to Devon Achan. All right. Because he's not as big of a playmaker and getting big chunk yards that the other two are. And one of the giveaways for me on this was the Mike McDaniel press conference when he says being able to effectively run the ball inside hopefully brings those linebackers and everybody up. And the hopefully is the one that gives me pause, because I think he understands what's going on as well. And he's probably looking at it saying, all right, Hill and Waddle, they're still going to be, those are going to be the primary focus of the defense stopping. All right. Just because we're running effectively doesn't necessarily mean the defense is going to come back down and say, okay, now we got to stop Devon Achan. So,
forgive me, guys.
Right.
My mountain getaway could be a internet hell.
No,
I'm so sorry, guys.
You're good, Curtis. You're good, man. You're good. That's all right. We got Greg here was filling in the void, so no problem, brother.
I was trying to explain to everybody what the basis of our discussion was on X.
Okay.
About depth of defense and how we can bring them back in, and hopefully that opens up the passing game again, and things like that. So
my German is killing me. The OCD. Okay, I got my points here. I'll continue, and I will tie into some of that. It definitely will. And again, I apologize to the viewers and you guys. You can't build those O lines unless you. I mean, some might say that the Eagles' offensive line is sort of entering that territory. Lane Johnson is probably going to the Hall. Is definitely going to the Hall of Fame. He's an all-time great. Makari, I think his name is the left tackle. He's unbelievable. Kelsey was unbelievable. So no, you can't aim for that. If you get lucky and your acumen allows you to add that, then maybe things like that happen. But I agree everything you were saying from when Brady and Manning cried to the league about rule changes. I believe from that point on until about 5 years ago, NFL defenses were on their heels, and you could get away with weakened offensive lines because everything was pushed so much to the skills, to the quarterback position, and I dare say defense. But I do believe there's been a cycle shift. And clearly the two-a-days, the lack of them being pulled out also hurt as well. And so some of that stuff has now changed. And the quality of the offensive line, I think, is if you look at the draft cycles and you look at the teams winning, there was only one team that made the postseason with, I think, more than a top 20 offensive line, maybe top 18th, and that was the Texans. And I think theirs was actually a little better because they made some personnel shifts in the middle of the season, and it really paid dividends, although in the end, I think it was exposed. But good GMs, really good GMs, they saw the cycle shift, and then they began and to your point too, is that we invested a lot of big picks on offensive linemen. The problem was we picked the wrong guys. And when you look at, I'm sorry, you want to say something, Greg?
No. I was going to say, one of my big things is if the plan is flawed, no matter how well you execute the plan, you're not going to succeed, right?
Yeah.
But if your plan is correct, you still need to select the correct players to execute 100%. The plan.
We had unprecedented capital and wet the bed unprecedented.
Correct. And that's part of. That's a big part of the problem, and basically, and me and you have talked about this, before, Curtis, on X, is that it's the pieces just never fit. Correct?
No, it's right. it's like just
yeah. As a former offensive lineman, as a person who coached the offensive line, all right. It's not necessarily about putting the best players on the field all at the same time. It's about the best players who can work together with each other,
and for a particular scheme.
So if you want to put a zone blocking scheme together. All right. You want to move your players around to say, okay, this guy is better at the point of attack with somebody over the top of him who has to engage, and this is a player that's better, let's say, climbing to the next level.
Yeah,
they work off the hip of the guy in front of them who's engaged, and then being able to climb. Okay, you can't have two engagers basically back to back and not having the ability to climb. So there's a cohesiveness that you have to work there together to create.
1,000%.
And part of what Greer's problem was, in my opinion, is he didn't figure that into the equation when he was drafting players.
Well, it's I call it like an offensive line it needs the most chemistry. Every piece plays off each other because they all work together like a superhero team. You can't have 5 Hulks. You can't have 5 Reed Richards. You've got to lay it out in a particular way. You have to have certain skill sets. And but for me, the base of all offensive linemen is the ability to handle power. Now, they can do it by having great technique. Maybe they get off real quick and then get on the guys, or they're just big. Maybe they're not so strong. They're just really big. Or maybe they're really strong. However you handle it, the ability to handle power in most positions, except for center. Center, you could sometimes get away with it. And sometimes you can mask it by the rest of the offensive line. But Grier, he has this prototype, I think, across the board. High athletics, quote unquote, good guy. But they very rarely, especially in the offensive line, except for maybe Hunt, Jones. Teron was a special case altogether. I thought Connor was a nice grab, but we had too many soft guys, too many weak guys. And that would have been fine 10 years ago. But the shift, the move to pass balance is demanding that you control the A and B gap. And I think that applies for me, the way you affect the leverage. And you said before, now they're playing with 5. Yes, the nickel, the dimes on first down. So what they do is they umbrella everything, especially edges. They sell out to the pass game. And what they did to us, I have never, ever, ever, ever seen. The absolute disregard in blitzing, the absolute disregard in the A and B gap, the leverage at the linebackers and the leverage at the safety positions. And so Grier's finesse style, it just wasn't, it was so lopsided, and it wasn't really even great at what it was saying. And so the leverage was set by our inability to affect the interior. And I think it goes back to our inability to handle power. Grier missing the cycles, missing big on picks. I mean, Zach Tom, again, I said it before he was even drafted. That's about as easy a pick as humanly possible. Could have had him in the 3rd or 4th round. And so I agree. You look at the best teams, they'll have maybe 1 guy or 2 guys they picked up in the 1st round. The rest of it, they're finding guys in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and we never do that. We never find guys past the 2nd round on the offensive line that really perform. And it's always a snow job like they're going to, and they never do. And so I don't know if I'm rambling. Am I rambling? I'm sorry.
No, you're making a point. You're making a point. And
so I think that everything you're saying, I agree with to an extent. If we had a more capable GM with all that ammo and obvious picks, Creed Humphreys, we chose Eichenberg. We could have got Cosme, who was right behind us, and we went for Eichenberg for the 2nd and 3rd round pick. And so the fact that we can't hit those mid rounds, we can't even hit in the top rounds. We got Hunt, who was a really good player for us. We let him walk. It all created this black hole. If you look at all the metrics, we were bottom 3 every single year that I've been doing it since 2021. And so that's not a tenable position, because you look at the Eagles, even the Steelers are starting to go to it. The Ravens, look at the Bills. The Rams, when they won, they had a phenomenal offensive line. And you even look at Tampa, they're going, all the top teams saw a while ago, 4 or 5 years ago, what the cycle was, and they did a better job. But we went the road less traveled, and the road less traveled is less traveled for a reason, because most people go down to the eaten by bears and pooped out, and Greer is a pile of poop that was pooped out. So, I mean, that's my rant take.
Well,
Anyway.
tell us how you really feel.
I know, I'm holding back. I'm holding back.
Let me ask a question to both of you, if I can remember it, because I lose my train of thought sometimes. No, I know what I was going to say. So, do you think that maybe the theory behind Chris Greer or Mike McDaniel's decisions to not really concentrate their focus on the O-line is because, like, and I hate to bring this name up because I don't want to get him involved in this conversation, but the quarterback, our quarterback, you know, he went up there on the podium and said, "I get the ball out fast, brother." So he doesn't seem like he's worried about the O-line either. So I guess that's the question. Do you think that's why? Is because he does have a quick release. He gets that ball out. And if you and in theory, when you're getting the ball out quick like that, even when let's say teams would be blitzing, right? Wouldn't the quarterback have that advantage of that receiver to be, you know, hitting that receiver quick in beating the blitz? You know maybe that's their philosophy. He's getting the ball out because Dan Marino got the ball out the fastest ever, 1.5 seconds. That's
they
crazy.
say 2 is actually faster. Someone study. I don't know if it's true or not, but
okay. Well, either way, they were both. Either way, they're getting the ball out quick, right?
Yeah.
That's that. And if a blitz is coming on, even Brady got the ball out quick at times. When the blitz was coming, he got that ball out. Now, I'm not comparing Brady to Tua or anything like that, but just an example. What do you guys think? You think that maybe that plays a toll in why? Or not a toll, plays a role in why maybe, you know, Greer, McDaniel is maybe not focusing so much, or at least in the past they weren't. This year they did, but in the past, you know, getting it right.
Well,
we still don't know if they're getting it right, but anyway.
Well, we don't know if they're getting it right, but Tua's strength as a quarterback is basically throwing the ball on time to a spot and expecting the wide receiver to get to that spot. All right. You need wide receivers with a certain skill set to do that effectively. All right. That's why they went out and got Tyreek Hill. That's why Waddle is pretty good at it as well. All right. If you do that consistently, you can minimize the importance of the O-line, because the O-line doesn't have to block for that long. All right. And if you understand offense today compared to what it was in the past, there really isn't a true progression anymore in the passing game. Okay.
Brady even said that.
All right. You basically call a concept. The concept adjusts to the coverage, and both sides. There's not a front side and a back side to the passing game anymore. It basically it's all the eligibles out there basically are getting open at the same time. You can go to the right, you can go to the left, based on the coverage and the route combination to beat the coverage. All right. So you can have the concept called, and if it's a cover 2, this concept, you might run it to the right-hand side, and you might play the combination to the right, and you're going to get the ball out in 2.5 to 2.8 seconds. If it's a different coverage, if it's man, you might focus on the left-hand side, and it's the same thing. It's the coverage. It's the concept and the coverage dictates what side you throw to, and basically who your number one read is. All right. So if you're running that type of offense and your quarterback is smart enough to understand, this is what the coverage is doing, this is what my concept is, this is where I need to go with the ball, and I can get it thrown out there on time. Okay. I don't have to block that long. All right. That's basically the point of it. All right. It worked really well for 2022 and the beginning of 2023. All right,
Mhm.
it
Right.
was successful.
Right.
Tua looked really good, things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then defenses started to see the pattern of where the throws and the route combinations and things like that were taking place. That's when they started getting deeper. Okay, that's when they started taking away those zones essentially for him to throw the ball into. And Curtis made a comment that, I've never seen this defense played like this against anybody else. Well, part of that is due to Tua's lack of ability to hit the outside deep hole throws that are needed to beat the defense that Miami's facing. All right. He lacks arm strength. Okay.
Right.
And,
Right.
basically you would route adjust. If you saw that defense with let's say Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, who had the arm strength or something like that, you would route adjust and you would run into that hole, and the defense would get out of there like that in a snap. All right, because he can hit those hole throws. So you set up the offense like this. It worked for a year and a half. The last year and a half, it hasn't. So now they're scrambling, in my opinion. And if you give Tua more time, all right, in the pocket to hold the ball, that basically disrupts his timing, and he doesn't necessarily have the arm strength to fit it into a tight window on a C throw as opposed to a timing throw and a spot throw. All right. That's just the nature of the type of quarterback he is. All right.
Gotcha.
We were talking earlier about like Chad Pennington in 2008, right? And his passer rating and things like that. He was the same way. Drew Brees is the same way. All right. And the comparison to Drew Brees with Tua is a little bit faulty because Drew Brees understood everything that was happening in the game. All right. Tua's not there yet. Tua still has confusion moments. All right. And he lacks that ability to squeeze it into a tight space with velocity. All right. So that's a long way of saying that McDaniel and Greer have evolved as to what this offense can and can't do, and now they're having to make a major adjustment on it. And I think that's the point of this power kick and trying to be more physical up front. I still don't think it's going to change the defense a lot. I just don't think that the defenses fear Achane anywhere near the way they fear Waddle and Hill.
But we got Ollie Gordon now.
Well, we're gonna need to be a big, powerful running attack type offense and have major success with it for the first 6, 7, 8 games of this year coming up to get them to change defense. I mean, in my opinion, we're just going to have to beat people to a pulp. All right. And hope that it happens. And that's hard to do unless you got a special running back, and until Miami finds that guy, I just don't see defenses adjusting. They're gonna let them pound the ball. They want a low possession, low scoring game. They want to keep Miami around 20 points. You keep Miami around 20 points, you got a pretty good chance of winning. And I think that's what the thinking is right now.
Right. Curtis, how do you feel?
I really like this new system I got. It writes stuff down. I never would have remembered all this, man. So if you go back and you check Greer's MO on the offensive line, it was with Flores, it was Gase. We have run the same philosophy since like about 2013. Right around Bullygate, we kind of has stigmatized the O-line. It became not important. I think Greer veered from the Parcells philosophy for some reason. I think this is him, although McDaniel might go along with that. You might look and say, oh, well, he's emulating San Fran, who doesn't really care about their offensive line. But they went out and got Mack. They went out and got Mack from Atlanta for a reason. They went out and got Williams, who's probably top 3 offensive lineman in the history of the game. They had the kid that went over to the Raiders in a big contract. They've had very good players, but they've also been finding guys and getting the right guys. We got Tehran. I love Tehran. Short-term thing, in and out. Williams, they invested big. We could have got him, and he'd have still been here. So, again, I think that Greer is one of those guys who thinks he's smart, looks at other people's plans, but he's never got the brains to match it. He's always like a watered-down version. He thinks he's Picasso, but he's like, a guy who's finger painting in the corner. So I think that McDaniel plays a part, but he's a green head coach. He came in here with Greer, who had 24 years. I don't think he had the power, the unction to go do it. You look at Flores. He wanted the offensive lineman that went to Tampa, and then supposedly wanted to grab Love. But he went with Jackson, who everybody said was a total reach. So I think that maybe McDaniel plays a part. I'm sure he does, but I think the driving force is Greer. Now, there's 3 windows. There's a short, medium, and long-term window. And anytime you have more time, it opens up more windows within a play. And you just because a play goes on for a little while, it doesn't mean it has to be 50 yards down the field. If you go back and you look at Brady, they would have route combinations that would have 2 or 3 points on it, and it would get to that third window and it'd be a 5-yard play for a first down. And so I think that any quarterback is good but it goes back to the designer of the offense. McDaniel's not a good designer of an offense. And that will tie to something else that you had mentioned. Now, so we throw fast. We have this style, and it certainly helps too in some ways. He can't throw the deep outs. That will clearly on that. If you had a chessboard, people would say that sector, I don't really care. Let that go. Right. Focus on every other sector. But when you operate with the offense that we have, it makes it so much easier for McDaniel because he scheme calls. He comes out, gets the play in late, and now they're not going through progressions. They have to read the coverage. So he offloads all the responsibilities to the receivers and the quarterback to figure it all out. And that's why the verbiage has to be so big. Not to mention the play getting in late because there's huge verbiage. And offloading responsibility eliminates the opportunity, it seems, to have an audible game, which is very critical. Even a basic run call in the huddle, you call run pass. You go look. I
can't understand that.
You go look at the Houston game. Go rewatch it. They were playing 7 yards off the ball by the linebackers, edges out wide, cover 2. We had like a 12 or 21 personnel, and we passed. That was like an instant, easy call. Now, Tua does throw to a spot, but that there's many ways to get that skill set to be effective. It doesn't have to be in the first window. You can get that skill set to attack the second and third window very easily with a run game through legitimate play action on a tight end or route combinations. Like, ask yourself, you've got Waddle and Hill. Why is it always post fly streaks? Why isn't there like an 8-yard route combo where Hill's going over the top of the post and you get Waddle around in the curl, you get to that 2.4, 2.5 range on the curl comeback and you hit it because the protection is not there. And McDaniel, I don't think he's not McDaniel's over in New England. He's not that level. He was a run game coordinator. And so while you could say too, it is whatever, and that might be fair, McDaniel is on training wheels too. And part of this stuff plays out in that way. And to Greg's point, talking about the reads of the coverage, I did not notice. O'Daris, he came in, D1 cornerback, taught me all this, and it really changed the way I saw things. And it made me not so much look at Tua, it made me continually go back to McDaniel. Now, when you have this system, look, you go look at I don't know. Some of the people were talking about this offense. Was it the 49ers maybe or somebody? If you want to run a heavy outside zone system and be heavy finesse, Atlanta Falcons, look at their division. They got Domes, they got Texas, they got the Colts. That is a totally different environment than an AFC East team that's going to have to go to New England and the Bills and the Jets. And so the very philosophy, the concept that was installed here demanded we get home field advantage throughout, or else, because you look at the Bills a couple of years ago in the snow, they ran outside zone and the running Cook was like, I can't do nothing. The run game died. And then the Bengals just pounded them inside. And so there is installed failures in this offense from a philosophical level, construction level, design level. And Tua's abilities can be utilized just as much. The quick throw, the throwing to spots, all that stuff can be utilized, but it doesn't have to be this one window game. It was short-sighted, narrow-minded, and it limited us. And anytime, Greg, you're an offensive lineman. How much did you hate to sit and pass block all day? You wanted to go out and hit these guys. It gave you confidence. It made them, not pin the ears back. And so you had a choice. You had a billion picks. You could have built like the 1970s Dolphins and had Bob Greasy, or you could have built like the 80s Dolphins with Dan Marino. And Greer saw the old cycle. He saw, Ross will be happy if I got a high-flying offense. If he had built like the 70s Dolphin and allowed Tua to be greasy, he'd have hit the cycle right. And if he'd hit those picks right, we could have been a juggernaut. And so,
to be fair, Curtis, we had Larry Zonka, Murky Morris, and Jim Kick.
Oh, yeah. But I'm not saying the exact, but if you look, what is the Eagles? They were almost exactly like what the 70s Dolphins were. You look at the Ravens. Yeah, they got the mobile quarterback, but it's all this interior. Look at the muddy conditions of that division, and that's a travel offense. This is a dome, happy-go-lucky, early season offense. We saw it with Dan Marino. Tua is not the same quality. So there was a lot of problems there. And Breeze, you look at Breeze. Breeze always had an immaculate run game. Peyton was a genius, made sure he had an audible system. And when he got to New Orleans, he was not good. And he got rewritten and redeveloped and rebuilt. So anyway, I'm ranting. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're making great points. You're making great points, Curtis. That's why I got you on here, brother.
Now, so one of the things that I will say about quarterbacks, okay, is one of the best abilities to have as an NFL quarterback is the ability to see and react to everything that's around you. All right. Mm-hmm. Not everybody could do it. No. Breeze got rewired. Manning, Brady, those types of players, they played the game in their head. They weren't physically gifted in all manners of football, but they understood exactly what was happening all the time. All right. Mm-hmm. The Shanahan, McVay, whatever you want to call it, offense, all right, that's out there now, is very quarterback friendly because it takes all of that away from them in a way. All right. It basically makes the decisions for them. At some point, though, you play a good defense where they don't allow you to do that. All right. McVay went to a Super Bowl with a better team, quarterbacked by Jared Goff, and basically got shut down by Bill Belichick.
100%.
Right? Because Goff could not figure out what was going on. All right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They make the trade. They bring in the other quarterback, and they win the Super Bowl. Stafford, because Stafford's really, really good, and Stafford's probably going to go to a Hall of Fame. All right. Yeah. At some point. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with Breeze. The difference between Breeze and Tua is Breeze controlled everything and understood.
Oh, smarter. Everything. He had the most amazing throwing hygiene, platform mechanics I've ever seen. Correct. I would never equate the two, but what I would say is I feel like Tua is more Shanahan Breeze, the framework, rather than the Peyton.
That's fair.
Breeze.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Brady, Breeze, Manning, they operated from a system where they could get to the line of scrimmage, see what the defense was doing, and adjust the play or hit that second, third window, or so on and so forth. McDaniel's offense, you don't know what the defense is doing until after you've done your shift, after you've run your motion, and basically said, okay, now this is what the defense is doing. And by the time you do all of that stuff, you can't really change the play. All right.
Well, but now, Greg, I got a question for you. Why do you need to have this way of running offense the perpetual way. Why not bring a sort of simplified version, get to the line of scrimmage, and then the defense doesn't know, and maybe you can get to the line of scrimmage early with a more basic. My premise would be because the offensive line don't got the junk in the trunk, but it doesn't make any sense.
So
4 years, no audibles.
Well, and my premise is that because without that, Tua can't function.
But look, I don't. I would say. I'm sorry. Keep going.
I was going to say it's Tua. All right, I go back to this. All right, a coach told me this a long time ago, and he said basically your best offense needs to be your 2-minute offense. Okay, what does the 2-minute offense in Miami mean? When Miami's running the 2-minute offense, you can't shift, you can't motion because it takes too much time. So basically, you are static at this point.
Yeah.
All right. You basically line up, you call the play, you run the play. And in my opinion, some of Tua's worst moments are running that static offense.
100%.
He has trouble. He has trouble without the motions and the shifts telling him what the defense is doing. He has trouble identifying where people are coming from, how to set protections, which is part of the quarterback's job. Right? And that's because of that staticness, in my opinion. All right. You just watch the games, or watch a number of games, watch a number of those situations. That's where he tends to be least effective.
100%.
And I
think that goes back to. I think that goes back to 2020. So when you look at all these top quarterbacks, they always had geniuses, brilliance, guiding them, tooling them, building them up. To me, Shane Gailey is one of the most brilliant minds in the NFL. He revolutionized this high-flying system. A lot of that came from him, what he brought to college here.
Yep.
My belief is Tua was expected to come here, learn under Fitzpatrick for 2 to 3 years. While his body heals, he gets reset, and Gailey would have been the guy doing it. But somebody decided to put him in week 6 or 7, and Gailey wasn't notified, and then the whole thing crumbled. He wasn't healthy. Gailey said at the beginning of the season, when is Tua going to play? When he's healthy and he knows the playbook. He didn't know either. Somebody above Flores made that call, forced him in. He had one offense and one coordinator. Then he had the 3 OCs. And then he went to McDaniel. And then McDaniel added a whole new offense, and he had stuck with the same offense. But it's, as you said, a smoke and mirrors offense built on fluff and flash. But that when McDaniel got here, the guy was asked to win now, be OC, be HC. And he never, he's just now getting guys to show up, quote unquote, to on time. So when you really look, whatever Tua is, whatever he's not, it doesn't really matter. It's some of the worst framework I've ever seen, whether it's from the PR standpoint, whether it's from the constant terrible offensive lines. Chris Coffin put, we had the worst true pass set grade in like 16 years by a landslide, I think 2023. You look at all the metrics, this offensive line was garbage. And so you get a bad offensive line. You got constantly rotating OCs and smoke and mirror systems. And you got the idiocy at the top, defensive coordinators coming in and out, which does affect things over and over again. We are the most dysfunctional franchise, or top 3. And so the quarterback stability, development, his development is terrible. And so whatever, like if you got a guy who's small, can't throw outs, and has a grievous injury history, why on earth are you asking him to throw to win games with a Swiss cheese offense? You would say, hey, I'm going to get this guy a nice offensive line, a very nice tight end who's a security blanket. We're going to run the football. I'm going to slowly bring this guy along and try to see what he can do and develop him. At least we'll keep him protected and not make him the end all be all. But Ross has this dream of getting the next Dan Marino. Greer has this dream of giving the next Dan Marino to Ross. Ross and Greer believe that high-flying, big-scoring offense is going to make the fans happy. But it's like a drug that comes in and out and runs away. Winning is what makes them happy, and they don't know how to do it. Ross has said over and over again, he's building a corporate environment. That's not a football environment. And so Tua, I do believe, has problems, but I, a schmuck, potato head over here, I could have built a much better offense for him. And and even when, at a certain point, some talent, picks, like, how do you mind? So for me, it's just this kid will likely never be where he needs to be. But no matter what, whoever you put here, Greer would screw him up. The dysfunction would screw him up because that offensive line is not getting us to a Super Bowl with any quarterback, in my humble opinion. Sorry, rant.
No, you're good. You're good. And we're getting short here for time. So I'm going to ask you one question and this would be the final question. And Greg, you can answer this first. So in conclusion, with everything that we've talked about, as far as the trenches goes, we talked about the quarterback, we've talked about our receivers, things of that nature. So the bottom line, and what I want to get at is I want to get your opinions on, with the present draft picks that we brought in, one on the O-line, right? Jonah Sevaniah. And then we brought in James Daniels. We've got Patrick Paul as left tackle, and then the famous Austin Jackson. I don't know why everybody thinks he's so great.
I'm sorry, Austin.
Our right tackle, right? And our center, Brewer. With those people in place, and I know we haven't seen Jonah even take an NFL snap yet, but we got kind of an idea what Paul did last year with what he did. Small sample size, but we saw what he did last year. We know what James Daniel went, at least he got hurt with the Achilles, but before that, he was playing really, really well. And now Austin Jackson is back. So with those people in place,
with the new injury.
Yeah, that's true too. But with those folks in place, do you feel, Greg, that the Miami Dolphins are in a better position for a good running attack inside zone? And will this also help Tua with possibly more time to throw? Or maybe they'll keep the same system, the quick passing. I think that's what they're going to go. They're going to continue with this, getting the ball out real quick. But I don't know. What's your opinion, Greg?
I think they could get marginally better running the ball. All right. Even if the O-line was significantly better, I still don't have a whole lot of faith in the running backs. All right. Mm-hmm. I say it like this. All right. The HN had a negative yards beyond expected last year, right? He basically didn't gain the yards he was supposed to gain. All mm-hmm. right. Until we get a running back that can be a positive 200-300, all right, I don't think the run game is going to improve significantly. I think that's a change of running back. Do I think the offensive line can provide more protection for Tua? Yes. I think they could do some things scheme-wise as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that cracks me up about offensive philosophy in today's game is this need to always have 4 and 5 people out in a pattern. When I have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, guess what? I'll just say, you run fast, I'm going to block with 7, and I'm going to figure out a way to get you the ball, all right, and behind all the defense and things like that. So I think there are certain things scheme-wise they can do. I do think they can provide Tua with more protection, but I don't see them getting the defenses out of what they've been playing the last year and a half either, unless we're just bloodying people with that run game. Even if the run game is, even if the run game's top 12, I still don't see Miami's the opponents, the defense, getting out of what they're doing now. And at some point in a 2-minute drill, with the game on the line, Tua's going to have to beat that defense passing the ball. And for a year and a half, I haven't seen him do it. So,
gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
That's
enough.
where I'm at.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Curtis.
I sort of I would love us to be a bruiser running game. I don't think we need to. I think it'd be more key for us to be situationally successful. Even if you affect the leverage a little bit, because Hill and Waddle is still phenomenal with the speed. When you have linebackers sitting at 5 and 6 and 6 and 7 yards, and they're read and react or drop without any step forward, without any hesitation, it's impossible to hit those pocket posts. And so the way they've abandoned that A and B gap, the leverage they give wide and deep at the linebacking core and not committing anyone to the box, you don't need to run up and down the field on them. But if you can do that enough, you will affect the DCs. You will affect the tendencies of the linebackers. Now, to what degree? That's the concern. Savaianaya, he's a wonderful pass blocker, true set pass blocker, but he struggles versus power. And some of the knocks on him, he struggles to move guys. And that was at the tackle spot. Inside, guys are shorter. They get better leverage. They're heavier. They're stronger. Brewer's not a mover. Daniels is pretty good coming off an injury. Jackson's terrible. He's got a new injury. And one injury, you got Eichenberg in. If Eichenberg comes in, it would be disastrous. I don't know if we have enough to move these guys, but in my opinion, if you had enough talent just to situationally win, when those linebackers, and then, even come close to winning or win, that next week, the DCs will then be more focused on it. But as it stands now, we can't do anything. We're like 6 midgets working against two Andre the Giants inside those D tackles, and nobody cares. They're not touching it. So I think the running backs have potential. Problem is that Jalen Wright, we spent 2 fourths on him. He can't pass block. Big problem. Ali Gordon, I love him, but if we're going to run heavy outside zone, like some people are saying, it's going to be hard. He's going to have to demand a cutback. And so, again, we have this unidimensional concept with our running backs. I like HN. You put him on a good team, and the guy would be a stud. But he's getting ground up. And so we've got to create the leverage you've got 2 D tackles with 2 guards, a center, and then the edges are playing outside the tackle, so it's 5-on-2 with linebackers playing in the stands, and you can't blow them out. That's insane. No blitzing. We're the least blitzing. We're the least true pass set team in the league. We have some of the highest pass rush mitigation. We're calling screens and play actions in the 50% range. All these things are absolute clear tells that the OC knows his protection is no good, and DCs know that I don't care about your run game. It's limp. And so depending on the increments of success, you'll see leverage change. Will Tua be able to take advantage of it? I don't know. If Tua can't call audibles, basic run audibles when they're playing, one guy on the line 7 deep, what's the sense? Even he said, he's like, no protection, but I got to throw fast. And, sometimes I get the line of scrimmage and just go with it. That's insane in year 4. That's got to come back to McDaniel. It's got to come back to Greer and his avant-garde jackass build. So that's my take. And plus, I like Farrell Brown. Farrell Brown could be a nice little addition, too.
Yeah, I like him, too. As
a long shot, but it's possible. Long shot.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great. And this is the reason why I had you 2 on here. A lot of good information. I got your both of your philosophies. You basically let us know how you feel, Greg, how you feel, Curtis, and you put those 2 together. You 2 aren't too far apart.
Nah, it's really close.
You're very close in agreement when it comes to the philosophies and things of that nature. So we'll see. it's a wait and see, right? We don't know. We don't know how Zephaniah is going to turn out. We don't know if James Daniels has lost a little bit with that Achilles. Austin Jackson's, as you mentioned, Curtis, I forgot to mention that, but you're right. Yeah, he did sustain another injury that no, they're keeping secret, which, hey, that's their prerogative, do so. And it's not the same injury, so that's kind of concerning. But
you make fun of Tehran. He's been out more than Tehran.
Yeah. You're right. But guys, I really appreciate you coming on again. And Greg, are you doing your overtime on Fence Talk Sports Network? Are you guys up to date on that? Or
I am not sure. Brett started a new job, so his availability has been sort of up in the air. But we're
gotcha.
Yes, we're going to get back into it here shortly. And Steve, when you need me and I can come on, I'll come on. And Curtis, I'd love to keep talking with you, bud.
Yeah, definitely. Let's set something up.
No, absolutely, Greg. I definitely I'm going to take you up on that offer for sure. And Curtis, you know how I feel about you, brother. You're the best, man. You got.
I'm so sorry. I do apologize again about dropping. I do apologize, guys.
No, I understand, man. You're over there out in the boonies. I get it.
2,500 above sea level.
There you go. So I appreciate you coming on, man. You got a great show. And in fact, guys that are in the chat, I appreciate you for joining tonight. I really kind of didn't focus on you tonight. I'm sorry about that. I was really focused on the conversation we were having here, but I do appreciate you all for joining the chat. I see all your comments. Sea Devil, appreciate you, brother. Elwood, man, you're always good. I got Raphael was in here. I know I'm forgetting a bunch of names, but make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for all the newbies that were in here tonight, if there was any. So I appreciate that. But also head on over there to Ace Per Head right now. Ace Per Head, go right over there right now. Hit that subscribe button, and you will not be disappointed. And also go check out TD Fence Talk. Curtis was on last night. On TD Fence Talk, had a great time. Yep, I could see you guys are having a great time. Great discussion over there. So make sure you go check that out as well. And make sure you come check me out again next week, Tuesday, 7:30 Eastern time. I'll have Finn Sammy with the Finn's TV network. He'll be joining me as a guest. And also on Fridays, starting at 7:30 Eastern time, I've got Aging and Strong. Come join Aging and Strong on the Fin Extra network over there. And I'll be talking about not bodybuilding, on health, fitness, and getting stronger as we age. Barbell training, and it's mainly focused for the 50-55 plus, but you can also take a lot of good information down on getting strong. I'm not talking mostly about bodybuilding. I'm not into the bodybuilding. I'm not into powerlifting. I'm not into Olympic lifting. This is primarily strength building, getting strong the most efficient way. And come over there and join that on the Fins Talk Sports Extra at 7:30 Eastern time on Friday night. Guys, again, thank you very much. Thanks again for everybody that's in the chat. We'll see you next week. God bless. And remember, Dolphins #1, baby. Dolphins #1.